Hey guys, it's Tammy. I wanted to talk with you today about something that I've been writing about in my blogs. I have the two. I've got the Plant Whisperer on WordPress, and then I also have another one that I've just kind of breathed some new life into on the Red Door Apothecary website. So if you look up either one of those, you can kind of just check out things that I'm writing about that I don't necessarily post, because when I write, it kind of flows, and it allows me the opportunity to take the time that I need to say what it is I'm wanting to say. Sometimes when I do these videos, I get rather caught up and ahead of myself, and oftentimes don't necessarily get to the point that I'd like to get to, and it may even sometimes feels like it's a little bit jumbled, but I don't necessarily edit any of that out because I feel like it's there for a reason, and everything is perfect even if it's perfectly imperfect. So on that note, I wanted to kind of bring up a little bit of something I've been writing about, which is really my life's work, in the sense that what I'm really here to do is bridge the gap between consciousness and the physical world, especially when it comes to the health aspect of our existence. Right now, our context on the planet, and you can look at it everywhere, it's either or. Either we have this or we have that. Either we have money or we don't. Either we're happy or we're sad. Either we're healthy or we're not. So there's a great deal of either or running the show, whether we're aware of it or not. And this is something that I actually took a look at in my own life, especially more so this last week, when I realized that how powerful we are as individuals, and even though we don't necessarily like our current circumstances, it is exactly what we need. We called it into our existence for a learning experience, and so there's an abundance of everything. It's just a matter of how we classify that abundance. And more importantly, we get to see where we are limiting ourselves. And in my case, I find that when I live in the context of either or, that either I can have a relationship or a business, right? Either I can be in one location or another. We can't necessarily exist in the same space or have the same opportunities. Now, I do know that there are plenty of people who travel a lot, who have the luxury of being able to visit people and just go wherever they enjoy, and that's their experience, that's their path. Mine is one in the way that I've created it. And sorry, there's people passing by the window and they're looking in my home. It's a little bit distracting. Anyway, so what I was getting at is based on our belief system, and those are the beliefs that we grew up with, how we were, in the environment that we were raised. Not necessarily, this is not about blaming or anyone. It's just merely our experience of the world and the interpretations that we generate as a result of those experiences, and those interpretations are the foundation for our belief system. And until we can actually get to the root of that and actually understand what our belief system is, we go through repetitive experiences, or we repeat, or we have different experiences, breakdowns, problems, situations that either we will repeat in a different form, or we can look at and go, holy crap, that's what this is about. So anyway, that said, I've been having some experiences along those lines that had me go, holy crap, you're kidding me, right? Here we are, either or. So because of that, I have been either talking about consciousness and spirituality separate from health and wellness. And as I really care for the plants that I love, and attend to them, And every morning it's just that. One of my dreams is to have a conservatory. But right now I have my plants around the house, and before coffee, my plants get attention. And in doing so, I recognize certain traits about them that I can actually map onto our physical life. There's a lot of lessons that I'm gaining, and like I said, I just actually finished posting something titled Feel the Force on the Plant Whisperer, and then I actually posted something else the last couple times on the Red Door Apothecary with regards to sensory processing. Both of these are tied to consciousness and the flow. It's a lot on the Red Door Apothecary. I talk a lot about the diet. You know, we currently have either we can have carbs and fats, or we can't. You know, there's the either or. But what we do know is that the body needs carbohydrates and fats. It also needs purine, which is something that's typically found in meat. And if you're a meat eater, you're getting adequate sources of purine. However, through genetic sequencing and your specific wiring, you may not be using the purine very well. And so you can read about this. So what I'm seeing in this context of either or when it comes to diet and our health, it's either we have medical care or we have alternative care, right? Complementary care. The two worlds don't work together, and this is part of my mission, is to actually integrate these two worlds, because the body actually requires these two worlds. It does benefit from the medical world, from the series of tests that can be run on you, to the medications that you take. And yes, I did say that medications do have their advantage. And at the same time, they don't source the body like live plant matter, such as essential oils. Why? Because they don't contain the consciousness that is available to us through the plants, through live things. This is the reason why there's such a big movement towards raw food. I'm not advocating for any one particular diet here. I'm simply pointing out that these foods contain nutrients that our body needs, and whatever your options are, whatever your choice is rather, and how to eat, you're better sourced if you actually back it up with essential oils, because the essential oils actually modify genetic expression. Now, if you're doing this on your own, it's going to be hit or miss. Really understanding the constituents in these oils, and so to best effect your system is really important. So again, like I say though, these live plants, and when we distill essences from these plants, they still contain the consciousness. Consciousness cannot be identified, it cannot be seen, it cannot be contained, because it is evolving, it's an energy. You know, Albert Einstein talked about everything is energy. We understand the force, the life force within everything. I mean, we've, you know, from Francis Crick and James Watson, who's identified the double helix in the DNA, they were able to get to understanding that there's more going on to our genetic function than what's meeting the eye. Now, there's a lot of work being done right now to identify what they may call the God gene, and I'm not suggesting one way or the other than there is a life force that exists within me, that exists within you. It is the reason why plants grow. It's I had actually posted a picture on Instagram and again on my Plant Whisperer blog earlier today about this plant. It's a succulent that's literally at least hanging 6 feet from the floor. It's this dinky tiny little thing that started out inside of a ceramic egg that you couldn't see, and 2 years later it has come out, it's gone down, and it's looped back up again without any encouragement from me whatsoever. This life force just did that. We see it when we look at a plant or a weed growing through the cracks in the concrete. This is the life force that's driving it. There's a connection to the light and the sun and the environment, and there's a life force that's being inspired, and that exists in the plants, that it is existing in us. And if we can integrate these two worlds, we are really bringing benefit to our bodies. And this is the part of the work that I wanted to highlight, is that if you actually use what's available to you, and we can actually bridge the gap, and force the energy within you, support your life force to be able to reach beyond the perceived limits that we are giving ourselves through diagnoses of disease and disorder. That's really where this comes to. When we talk about limiting carbohydrates and fats, here's a really important thing. The body is already compromised genetically. I'm going to say that straight up. I mean, each one of us is living with about 10 million different genetic variations. Which ones are functioning and malfunctioning is hard to guess. It's really not. It's not an easy test to get. The best test in the world is through your symptoms or looking at your family history. That said, I will tell you that while the decline in health is a misuse of nutrients, such as our cofactors, which would be all of our vitamins and our minerals, there's also a bigger problem with the way the body is not using macronutrients, which would be your carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And the reason why I brought this up the other day is I actually witnessed somebody promoting a product of a company that they work for or work with that is selling carb and fat blockers. Now, I'm not going to, there may be several products in the market, I don't know. This one just happened to cross my Instagram, and it just was astounding to see that we're trying to block carbohydrates and fats. Now, 20 years ago, I might have gone, well, hey, I'm on board. Today, not so much, because I work with autism and addiction, and I work with a lot of other mental and emotional instabilities, and these are all due to neuroendocrine imbalances. And the hormonal system relies on carbohydrates and fats. The brain and the nerves rely on carbohydrates and fats. And if we're blocking it, we're already throwing fuel on the fire, because the body is more than likely not using it appropriately. Let me just say this. If you're struggling with weight, and I mean on the heavier side, because keep in mind, on the slim side, and can be just as much of an indicator of a hormonal imbalance as can weight, heavy weight. So if you're on the heavier side of weight issues and you feel like this is a good thing, or you have sugar addictions, or you can't stop eating the pretzels, or other carbohydrates, like muffins and baked goods, if you're on that side and a fat and carbohydrate blocker sounds attractive to you, let me just say that fat tissue is part of the hormonal system, and it requires a balanced hormonal system in order to keep the fat regulated. And we're seeing younger and younger people with more heavy weight issues, and this is a result of a hormonal imbalance at younger ages. You're not immune to it if you're young, and you're not immune to it at any age, actually. So if we're looking at, if we're even tempted to block our carbohydrates and fats, you're like I said, you're throwing fuel on the fire. Now, where does consciousness come into this? Well, let me just say this. When we block the flow of life, we block the consciousness within, and we inhibit our own life force. Let me say that again. When we block the flow of life, we block our own life force. We slow down consciousness and inhibit our own life force from actually doing what it's there to do, which is to guide our lives. This is not to negate what we have created as human beings with regards to the technology available to us. This is to work in addition to. We are full of life, but we can't keep blocking it. When I had a client's mother ask me one day where I was trying to put her on wanting to increase the purine in her diet, because she is living with autism and demonstrating sensory processing issues. And purine is necessary for the deactivation of acetylcholine. But it's a complicated series of processes that begins with purine. And what happens is if you go online, you'll see anti-purine diets or low purine diets. And this mother wanted to know where she could get purine supplements. I can tell you, you're not going to find them, because we're so anti-purine, because purine is typically found in meat. And what happens when you get meat? It increases your homocysteine levels. But keep in mind, if you're getting the purine and the body's not using it properly, you're at risk for a lot of health issues, including a highly acidic body. This is why incorporating essential oils so that the body effectively uses the purine is essential. And fortunately, this little girl's been living with essential oil blends now for almost 3 years. And we're seeing leaps and bounds of improvement. And the more I research and work on these things, the faster and the more she's improving. So anyway, when she asked me for purine supplements, I had to really direct her into food sources because it's not possible to get purine because of this reason. But again, it's because our culture is trying to limit our intake of purine, understandably so. High blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, these are problems as a result of what we would consider high purine diets or, meat-eating diets. It's not about whether you eat meat or not. It's about how well your body's using the purine. But to limit the purine will actually cause attention issues. It'll cause agitation. It can lead to high blood pressure, diabetes, like I said, respiratory issues, stimming, meltdowns, aggression, you name it. These are a result of the body not being able to deactivate acetylcholine, and that's because it's not using the purine properly. So we don't want to limit our diet for the reason. We want to include these things in our diet and integrate the essential oils into our world, into our lives, so that we can accept the consciousness from the plants into our system and actually help it breathe life into our own life force, so that we can actually navigate life into our fullest potential. So that's really what I wanted to say here. If you have any questions, please let me know. Feel free to visit either one of those 2 locations. Like I said, the Plant Whisperer on WordPress.com or the reddoorpothecary.weebly.com. And I look forward to hearing from you. And until then, have an absolutely blessed evening. Bye now.